Hi everyone, Jeff coming at you again this New Year's Day 2025 from the home office here in Ashland, Missouri. This I mentioned in a previous reader's review video that I wanted to go into this a little bit more in depth. Comet Man #1 from 1986 ran for 6 issues. Why did it fail to launch? Okay, Comet Man #1. Um, so the creators of this comic book, it was the first comics work of Bill Mumy, who had achieved fame as a child actor playing Will Robinson in the science fiction series Lost in Space, and his friend Miguel Ferrer, a fellow actor who soon was to have a major career breakthrough due to his role in the film RoboCop. And they wanted to craft a character harking back to the golden age of comic books. So they started off with a fictional comic title and a script that they proposed for the Twilight Zone. And after meeting with Jim Shooter, editor in chief at Marvel, at the San Diego Comic Con, they decided to try the character out in a comic book. Comico also showed an interest, but before the project deal was signed with Marvel, um, and Marvel's recently licensed artist Kelly Jones, yes, the same Kelly Jones of Batman fame, he was working on Micronauts at the time. He was assigned as the artist. He was pleased with the opportunity to draw a comic set in a quasi-realistic universe as opposed to the science fiction stylings of the microverse on Micronauts. So Comet Man was planned to be part of the shared Marvel universe with an initial 6-issue limited series featuring guest appearances from the Hulk, Captain America, and the Fantastic Four. Comet Man, the limited series, hit newsstands in October 1986. Shortly before the creation was noted by Rolling Stone in their Where Are They Now column. The series featured another artist who participated in this series, Bill Sienkiewicz. Despite Mumy and Ferrer being interested in writing further advances for the character, no further issues of the title appeared. Instead, the character would make a guest appearance the following year in Fantastic Four number 315 to 317, written by Steve Englehart. In 1990, the original team reunited for a brief 4-issue run on the character in the anthology Marvel Comics Presents number 53, and then the character was then unseen for a decade until a surprise reappearance in Peter David's Captain Marvel in the year 2000, at which time he was redesigned by artist Chris Cross, before once again vanishing into obscurity before a minor cameo in 2007's Civil War Battle Damage Report #1. So let's take a look now a little further at the comic book itself and see what we think. So right here on the splash page, we see the opening sequence. It looks like the space shuttle. Remember, this was 1987, so the technology was very familiar with the space shuttle missions that were ongoing by NASA. And the main protagonist is piloting this craft. His name is Stephen Beckley, and he was an astronomer and astrophysicist. We're introduced to his background, and he was running a project for NASA called the Edmund Project with his wife, a former astronaut, Ann Beckley, and then we're also introduced to their son, Benny. And so the other inspiration at this time was the return of Halley's Comet. And I'm sure there was a connection there to the name of the comic book and the character Comet Man, because he's on a mission to intercept Halley's Comet. Okay, let's move on and meet our protagonist. So here we see Stephen in the little round capsule. It was ejected from the space shuttle, and he is on his way to come into proximity with the tail of Halley's Comet. You can kind of see that in this sequence here. Very well scripted, very excellent read. Now, of course, for me, this was something that I was very familiar with from the 80s. This was my style of comic book. But I think almost anyone would have the same experience reading this. I'm just not sure how much the background, is familiar with the time and the technology, etc. But I thought it was very well laid out, very well scripted. So here on page, this is pages 2 and 3. You meet Stephen and his wife and Anne and their son Benny. Their benefactor, or the fellow that's high up within NASA that's behind this mission, he's in the middle of the page there, and you notice there's a inappropriate uh, an inappropriate butt tap there, pat pat. That would not happen, and she calls him out on it, and he kind of walks off. He's apparently a former boyfriend who is trying to angle his way in, as we learn here shortly. Skipping ahead here to a couple panels, a couple pages. Um, as he approaches, all of a sudden the comet uh, changes its trajectory radically, and he collides with the tail, and he explodes. What you're seeing there at the bottom, you're not quite sure who this. In this last panel, you see Benny's reaction, Anne's reaction. Hilbert is the um, the villain, um, as it turns out, and then you're not sure who that is there in that last panel underneath in the kind of bluish face, and so the timing and suspense of the story is excellent. Is really well laid out. It flows very well, and here you see he's trying to comfort her, and thinking that this might mean that he can step in and be with her in her time of need. So the plot thickens. So at this point, if you think that you might be interested in this story, you should probably stop this video and wait until you've read it. So not to give anything away, but here, moving fast forward, skipping over a few pages, it turns out that the conceit of the premise of this story is that Halley's Comet isn't actually a comet. It is an alien spacecraft. And it is an alien race that is observing through this part of the galaxy on an orbit of 77 years. And uh, the reason that the comet veered so quickly when it saw Stephen's spacecraft is because the alien that was piloting it wasn't paying attention, wasn't expecting Stephen to be anyone to be out there, and made a swerve to avoid him, and so their technology was so advanced that he was able to capture every last atom and molecule of Stephen's body and put him back together. And that's what we're seeing on these pages, the reformation of his body, and kind of a classic, a little play on Michelangelo's God touching Adam there at the top of the page, and this is the alien, who's kind of a fun, quirky character. Um, he doesn't play a much bigger role because Stephen, in his in trying to process this, what's happened to him, he wants to get back to Earth, and he turns down an offer to go back under kind of calibrate what it says here. Stephen, listen to me for a minute. The module that put you back together is calibrated to Fortescuean standards. The Fortescue is the name of the planet. He has some kind of translator, and he's able to speak English to him. You're now a fully evolved humanoid, and for that reason, I think you should stay with me. So he kind of passes on this opportunity, and we'll see he has to adapt to his new humanoid being with all these additional powers. So, having turned down Max the alien's offer to go back to Fortescue and adapt to his new Fortescan, however you pronounce this, Fortescuan being. He's just summarily ejected out of Max's spaceship, out of what he thought was Halley's Comet. So that's what you're seeing in the background in the panel where he says, "I'm alive." That's Max continuing on, and he was just ejected, and he's floating out there wondering, how is this possible? So a typical sequence here, or I shouldn't say typical, but it works because you're used to this in the superhero genre. He's you know adjusting to the fact that he has the ability to fly and all these powers. So the comic book continues. He returns to Earth, and as we'll see here in the final panel that I'm going to show, um, uh, the villain Hawkins basically in chapter 3 uh, basically tries to slow roll everything, keep him isolated and quarantined from his family, doesn't allow to see him, and under the pretext that uh, they need to quarantine and make sure that he's not contaminating anyone, and they start to put him through a battery of tests, and his powers come out. He has telekinesis and teleportation and super strength and can fly and so forth. So a wonderful comic book. Let me go ahead and show the last panel, and then we'll wrap up. Okay, here are the final pages and the closing scene. After the series of tests, here we see they're basically, let's see, what does he say? What's happening to me? Stephen, glad to see you're still with us. Quite a fascinating study we're running. If we can discover and duplicate the process that changed you, we could, well, needless to say, the possibilities are endless. Bridge research. The bridge, covert intelligence. Yes, we've had a lot of bad press lately. We get all the dirty jobs that no one else will touch. But David, I've known you for years. I had no idea that I was chief of bridge operations. Life is full of little surprises. Does Anne know about this? You're my ticket into the history books, Stephen. In Firewatch's last moments, that was um, the little manned space capsule that he was that Stephen was piloting when he ran into the Halley's Comet, became Comet Man. The energy readings you transmitted were phenomenal. No one expected numbers like that. Where's my wife? I want to see her, Anne, right now. Do you think I'm stupid? You cooperate with us, Stephen, and I'll see that Anne and Benny are taken care of. You'll be together again after the research on you is completed. In the meantime, I will personally see to it Anne has everything she needs. And there at that final panel, he's got a menacing smile on his face. Continued next issue, try to set the night on fire. Is that a reference to the Doors? And so a lot of references from the 80s, just to wrap up. Uh, really enjoyed this. It was kind of a surprise read. I think this was a book that I had come across and pulled out. Just something attracted me to the cover, knew nothing about it. It had a pretty vicious spine roll, so I pressed that, and it was laying around here, so I picked it up and read it the other night, and really enjoyed it. For example, there was a point where in the scripting they had switched now to other news, back to Beirut. And okay, yeah, that was when the Marine barracks was bombed. The U.S. Marine barracks was bombed in Beirut, Lebanon, in '87, I believe. So little things like that, you know, bring the place and time back to you, kind of as you read comic books. And I thought this was very well crafted. Now, of course, you have that bug. You want to find it, and of course, going out on eBay, I was delighted to see that it's alive and well. I found many listings where you can purchase the complete set for anywhere from, like $12 to $20. So it might be funner to try to find it myself in the wild. We'll see. But I am looking forward to um, uh, hopefully reading some more and seeing some more of Comet Man, another character that I enjoyed, and am thankful for the wonderful creative artists that have put these characters together and given it to us. That's all the reason that we love comic books and all this associated pop culture. So I hope you've enjoyed this. It was a little introspection on issue number 1 of Comet Man and this particular character from the late 1980s. And please share your comments if this is something that you like. Please subscribe. Please share. That helps the algorithm to present it to other people that might also like this sort of content. And keep reading, enjoying your comic books, and we'll see you on the next video. This has been Jeff at Magnitude 10 Comics. Happy New Year 2025. Bye.